What do you get when you cross the kind of fierce determination that can literally turn back the tides with a super tolerant, easygoing social attitude? The answer? A complex little powerhouse called the Netherlands. On this trip, we'll explore seductive Amsterdam, head south to the palaces of The Hague, and then peek in on delightful Delft. The Dutch certainly know the value of hard work. And perhaps more than any other country, they know the value of exploration and of embracing different cultures. For centuries, a willingness to explore has been this country's stock and trade. In this program, I hope to show you places that will convince you to do some exploring of your own. As a travel writer and journalist, I've traveled all over the world, and I've picked up a lot of tips along the way. I hope to share with you some of what I've learned, the best values, the most satisfying sights, and the latest travel tricks. Amsterdam is right near the top of my best cities list, and a canal boat offers a welcoming introduction. Canals embody the spirit of this city. Free-flowing and expansive, but framed by gabled architecture that's deeply rooted in tradition. Amsterdam is sometimes called the Venice of the North because of this fluid network that crisscrosses the city. Though the canals were originally built to haul food and wares, today they're just as likely to transport visitors, marveling at these well-mannered facades. Transportation is this country's lifeblood. And Amsterdam's readiness to venture into the world brought tulip bulbs from Turkey, porcelain from China, and made this a truly international city. The Netherlands, Holland, the Dutch. Confused? Maybe this will help. The official name of the country is the Netherlands. Technically, Holland refers just to the western part of the country. But for most of us, Holland has become the country's familiar name, and the people who live here are known as the Dutch. This is Dam Square, Amsterdam's teeming hub. Some 800 years ago, wanderers from Europe stopped to build a dam on the Amstel River, foreshadowing this country's long tradition of wresting land from the sea. Holland's golden age was the 17th century. While the rest of Europe struggled to make ends meet, the Netherlands was booming. Amsterdam became the trading capital of the world. The Dutch fleet boasted nearly 5 times as many ships as the British. Like never before, it was an era of exploration and prosperity. Holland's colonial holdings stretched from the islands of Indonesia to the shores of the New World, and the money poured in. My friend and tour guide, Albert Hootslag, explains how merchants once navigated old Amsterdam's streets.
Until the time of Napoleon, every house in Amsterdam had a name. There were no house numbers at that time. It's Napoleon who changed all that. If you were invited to come to someone's house, you were told to come to the house that had a name. For example, if you had come to the dentist's house, you would see a big tooth above the door. If you had come to someone who was originally from Alkmaar, you would see maybe the name of Alkmaar above the door. You would find his house, you would find a plaque, and just above the front door, usually, and that would tell you where he would live.
These colorful house plaques hint at the Dutch affection for art collecting, a hobby that in the 17th century became something of a national obsession. Today, as throughout its history, the Netherlands has been a huge supporter of the arts. In fact, this country has more art treasures per square mile than any other country on earth. The Rijksmuseum has an incomparable collection of paintings by the many artists who worked in and around Amsterdam. The prosperity of the Golden Age meant a big influx of people into the cities, and it was fashionable for these wealthy city dwellers to commission local artists. Landscapes and portraits were especially popular. Because of the tremendous demand for art, there was plenty of work for artists. In fact, many people entered the profession not because they loved to paint, but because they wanted to make money. But some of the greats grew tired of this portraiture for hire. They preferred following their passions to filling their pockets. Johannes Vermeer had a fascination with light. In his serene interiors, single figures engage in everyday tasks while clear light filters in, evoking a fresh, almost jewel-like glow. The great portrait painter Frans Hals was brilliant at capturing spontaneity. The jolly toper with his raised hand, teetering wine glass, and twinkling eyes is a moment of life frozen on canvas. Rembrandt was truly a giant in the history of art. His works, characterized by luxuriant brush strokes and a mastery of light and dark, conveyed a deep understanding of human character. The brilliant Night Watch was commissioned as an official portrait of a military company. In the painting, Rembrandt's subjects break from a traditional static pose as they shoulder their weapons, creating a striking image of movement and life. In a city crisscrossed by narrow streets and canal bridges, there's probably no form of transportation more suitable than the bicycle. It's true, Holland is very flat, and Amsterdam's transportation system is actually biased in favor of bikes, with wide, dedicated lanes. I'm off to explore more of the city. Because of its seafaring past and the constant traffic through its port, Amsterdam gained a reputation as a tolerant, easygoing town. A good example is the Jordaan neighborhood. In the 17th century, this was a refuge for Jews fleeing persecution across Europe. Protestants driven from Catholic France also found this a safe haven. But living in Amsterdam didn't always guarantee safety. Being squeezed between larger European neighbors has had its price. During World War II, the Netherlands was invaded by Germany. The country suffered terribly at the hands of the Nazis, and tens of thousands of Jews were killed. On the edge of the Jordaan neighborhood, in the attic of this merchant's house, Anne Frank's family hid in near silence from July 1942 to August 1944. The episode is heartbreakingly described in the young girl's famous diary, which has been translated into more than 60 different languages. In the face of Nazi occupation, Jewish persecution in Amsterdam began in earnest. Anne's father, Otto, carefully prepared a hiding place in the upstairs of this house that could only be entered through a secret passage behind a bookcase. His company's office was located downstairs. The secret household survived for 2 years with the help of Otto's Dutch business partners. Especially poignant are the pictures of movie stars and celebrities that Anne lovingly pasted to the walls of her dark bedroom. Someone betrayed the Franks to the Nazis, and they were arrested and sent to concentration camps. Anne Frank died in the Bergen-Belsen camp at the age of 15. Just across town is one of my favorite museums. Vincent van Gogh started painting in 1880 and he died only 10 years later. He's considered the first great Dutch master since the 17th century. Van Gogh began his tumultuous career here in the Netherlands, where he worked for 5 years before moving to France. He was deeply dissatisfied with the values of industrial society, and an intense sympathy for the poor dominates his early paintings. While other artists pushed Impressionism toward a more severe classical style, Van Gogh went in the opposite direction, seeking greater freedom to express his emotions. In his later works, he discovered the power of color, and every brushstroke became an expressive, graphic gesture. The results were electrifying. After Van Gogh took his own life, his brother Theo, an art dealer, collected 200 of his paintings and 500 drawings, as well as hundreds of his letters. They were eventually brought to this museum, the world's largest collection of Van Gogh's work. If bicycling isn't your thing, buy a strip ticket and hop aboard an electric tram. Dutch trams work more or less on the honor system, though inspectors occasionally pass through. When boarding, have the attendant punch your ticket or use one of the machines located in the back. The city is divided into zones, and you should always cancel one strip more on your ticket than the number of zones you're traveling. Amsterdam's liberal live and let live attitude is probably most noticeable in the renowned red light district. Prostitution has been a going concern in Amsterdam ever since the 13th century. Sea-weary sailors on leave roamed the streets looking for a good time and found entrepreneurial women needing cash. But this historic neighborhood holds more than just houses of ill repute. Amstelkring was once the home of a wealthy Dutch merchant. Today, this little-known museum conceals a fascinating record of life from centuries past.
They didn't have separate bedrooms in those days. People would sleep in different rooms, the whole family, children together. And the beds were so small, they looked like small cupboards because people didn't sleep the way we do today. They wouldn't lie down. They associated lying down with being dead. They would prefer to half sit up and have a lot of pillows in the back, and that way they felt more safe.
But the museum's greatest treasure is a small church built into the top 3 floors of the house. In the late 16th century, the Dutch government ordered the city's large Catholic churches to turn Protestant. Amsterdam, with its tolerant ways, still allowed Catholics to attend services as long as they were held in private homes like this one. At one time, there were more than 30 hidden churches like this in Amsterdam. But Amstelkring is the city's lone survivor. Fries with mayonnaise, the national snack. And so darn good for you, too. It's not difficult to have a great meal in Holland. Whether you're sampling herring from a street stand or dining in a fine restaurant, the Dutch have very high standards. And true to its tradition as a melting pot, Amsterdam has adopted culinary influences from all over the world. Because of Holland's former colonial dominance in the East Indies and the many Indonesians who migrated here, the Dutch have enthusiastically adopted Indonesian food. Rijsttafel, which literally means rice table, is a banquet of rice or noodles with countless spicy side dishes.
For the side dishes, over there is the chicken satay. This is grilled prawn. This is lamb in curry sauce. Mixed vegetables with bamboo shoot and coconut sauce. Okay, enjoy your meal, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Restaurant Puri Mas, located in Amsterdam's Leidseplein neighborhood, serves some of the tastiest rijsttafel in town. To explore the areas outside the city, you can use Holland's excellent public transportation system or rent a car.